Hi, I'm Dave Macpherson, the Hamilton City Councillor. I've recently been involved in our Tribunal hearing process where we voted 7 votes to 1 to take fluoride out of Hamilton's water. Before the Tribunal, I knew a wide range of sort of fairly low-level information. I'd seen some scientific information, but it was too detailed, too arcane to really assimilate it well, and I hadn't seen a lot about the public health issue argument either. Yeah, look, like a lot of people beforehand, I was slightly sceptical about the tribunal process because I hadn't been through it before, but following our experience with it, I thought it was great because it actually allowed each side of the argument to bring out all the points that they wanted and to have us question them on them and go into any detail that we wanted. So I don't think anyone from either the council side or the submitters side thought that there hadn't been a fair hearing of the issues. Yes, though I would say that we were a little surprised that the DHB didn't put up a better case, considering the amount of money they had thrown at advertising in the past. And it seemed like they were slightly resigned to being on the back foot, and the universal comment, including from previous fluoride supporters on council, was that the people who are against fluoride in the water had organised themselves better than the DHB. Yeah, look, both for and against arguments were put by medical, dental, scientific and public health experts. They were on both sides, so we had to basically sift through the evidence that was scientific evidence that was coming from both sides, and we didn't feel we lacked it from either side. Oh, the media comments, particularly the Daily Paper and the Waikato, have been pathetic, not to put too fine a point on it. They weren't at the hearing for a lot of it. They didn't follow the actual arguments that were put at the tribunal, and they came and attacked us for not following science afterwards. Well, which science did they want us to follow? And we heard, as I said, scientific arguments from both sides. The media didn't, but they have done an exceptionally poor job of presenting both of the arguments following the tribunal. I have seen the New Zealand Herald coverage, but I'm not sure that I'm getting the same New Zealand Herald as in your edition up there in the north. So what I've seen has been much lower key, slightly more even-handed, but not very in-depth for either side. So I suspect that the arguments are not well known at all by Aucklanders compared with now by Hamiltonians. There was absolutely no conclusive evidence that it was safe. I have to say there was no conclusive evidence that it was dangerous in terms of things like cancer and medical problems. There was convincing evidence, though, which was accepted by both sides, that the application of fluoride directly to the teeth, i.e. topically, was far and away the best thing to do. It was better. Even the pro-fluoride people totally agreed that it was better to apply fluoride, say in toothpaste or supplements or something like that, direct to the teeth than it was to put it into the water supply. Their only argument for putting it in the water supply was effectively that it would reach more people than you would if, say, in fluoridated toothpaste. The issue that really stood out was the potential danger for really young children, babies, as their teeth are forming, because you can't control the amount of fluoridated water that goes into someone unless you're using bottled water, and clearly that's not a viable option for most babies in the area, unless you ran a really big campaign. It would be better to run a campaign to apply fluoride direct to the teeth, where that's the only discernible benefit available. I was principally swayed by the public health arguments. I had been doubtful before about taking it out because I accepted the argument that fluoridated water reached people that might otherwise not get any fluoride onto their teeth, and I knew there was a case for some fluoride being applied directly to teeth to strengthen the teeth and so forth. But what I didn't know about was the effect on very young children, babies, that you got from fluoride, so that was certainly an eye-opener. And what particularly was interesting, though, was the DHB's own campaign that they're running to promote dental health amongst 5-year-olds. They're running a really widespread campaign amongst ethnic groups groups, Māori groups, low decile areas in the Waikato that's been proven in the last 3 or 4 years to be extremely effective. And my thought, well, why the heck isn't that expanded, enlarged, enhanced? And we should actually be helping that, because that's a far safer option than the lazy option, really, of sticking it in the water. Well, I think when I first started on council quite a few years ago, I was probably mildly pro-fluoride, only because I recall when I was a kid in Hamilton, my parents being involved in the fluoride debate, and it came in while I was a primary school kid in Hamilton, and we had been given fluoride tablets beforehand because all the dentists were saying it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I think that was about the same time that 245T was also the great saviour for some of our rural industries. So, you know, I had that inherent bias in favour of it, and it took me 2 or 3 years of listening to what I initially thought were nutters coming to council meetings and presenting submissions to actually think, hey, there's a little bit more to us than I had thought initially, and it's worth looking into. And the more I looked into it, the more evidence I saw, but particularly in the tribunal itself, the more I thought, look, we don't know what we're using here really, and there's no precautionary principle being followed. Unfortunately, that's true of a number of other things in New Zealand as well. So we have scientists that sort of have mantras that they can't break out of. There was a lot of doubt about fluoride safety, and that was the principal reason why people who had previously been pro-fluoride on council accepted that there was more than enough doubt to adopt the precautionary principle and say we're better to leave it out, to allow people who want fluoride or are prescribed fluoride in some way to add it directly to the teeth or in tablet form or other sort of topical applications. And then it's much more controlled. If you're swallowing it, ingesting it with water, or babies, for instance, ingesting it when they have formula mixed up with fluoridated water, there's absolutely no control over it then, and that was why we thought that it was dangerous to, potentially dangerous, I think is the way people felt.
The government?
I'm not sure that you'd quickly get a definitive result, but the government absolutely should be taking charge of the research, provided they do it in an even-handed way. And I note that the government's chief science advisor has not been even-handed in his comments so far, and he's made those comments direct to me in an email exchange that we had. He's made a statement that the science is settled. It's, blind Freddie can see that it's not settled, and because there's been no recent research, especially New Zealand research, it's not going to be settled unless there is. So the government should be organising for that to happen. Otherwise, you're putting councils and councillors and mayors in invidious positions. You're having them make decisions on the evidence they hear and then attacking them because they're not following what you want them to. So it's a really poor democracy, it's poor public health practice to do it that way.